Welcome everyone to another episode of FitFam. This is Miss Natural Olympia Hilary,
And this is Doug, the formulator.
and this is one of those great episodes that we do one of our What's Up Doc specials, and this is one of our favorite.
Oh, I love me some Dr. Lankering, so I can't wait for this one.
Welcome, Dr. Lankering.
Hey, great to be here, Doug, Hilary. It's such a treat. I don't miss FitFam every Friday morning. That's my FitFam program. So it's a real treat and honor, and I'm so excited to be with you folks. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Well, thank you. And this episode, for those that are just tuning in the first time, because I heard the great Dr. Lankering is going to be on, might want to sometime go back to the previous episode and where we really talked a lot about this mission that we've been on for decades. But what's really awesome that you've been on for decades, even before we knew each other. And we were just talking off the air about how really, when you're on a mission for something, you find out who's on your team real quick, who's just as passionate in their own way. And that's one of the things that I think has led us to just have this really deep connection with you. So thanks again so much. And what we're talking about is the Great American Food Fraud.
Yeah, and before we get into that, I would love for Dr. Lankering to tell everybody a little bit about what he does and how long he's been in the business.
Yes, well, actually, in just a couple of weeks, it's going to be my 40-year anniversary that I've been in practice, which is mind-boggling to think that. And you're supposed to say you don't look like you've been practicing for 40 years, but anyway,
That's what I meant.
but yeah, but I'm more excited, I'm more passionate than ever about that. And we've had this conversation before. I'm going to say one of the things that's so exciting is that the frequency and energy, which Doug, you talk about the frequencies and so forth. But boy, just being able to, I think, attract the tribe, and the people. And so I really appreciate, the friendship that we've developed, and because it's that energy, right? I mean, we're on a mission. We've got this passion, and we know that we're on the right track. We know that we have something that can help people, because the world and people are in a world of hurt, right? I mean, from nutritionally and emotionally and all kinds of stressors going on. And so it's so exciting to be having answers for them to help. So yeah. And so just the whole energy, it's exciting. It's really fun these days.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to kind of double down on Hillary because I know you don't like talking about yourself too much, but her question, I want to go a little bit deeper just for the audience, because those of us in this world where we're on a mission and there's this fight that we're, trying to lead the way and teach about, it's not easy. And very few people get into the field of holistic health and holistic medicine just out of love because, it's a lot of work to fight against big pharma and everything else that's out there. And for you, what got you started? Like, what decided you to go down this road 40 years ago?
Yes, I'd always been interested in the sciences, and biology and anatomy and even, ecology and astronomy, so all of those. And so when I went to my undergraduate work, I was in the pre-med program thinking I was going to be a doctor. And a very dear friend of mine, as great a guy as you could meet, um, had locked himself in the room and he would study and everything else. And he also had the other aspects. And when he applied to med school, he didn't get in. And I said to myself, I said, if they're not taking Danny, is this even a system that I want to be involved with? Is this really my calling? And I think it was at that point I'd had some insights and so forth, and had always looked inside myself and personal growth type of situations, not as much as the journey started to take me on. But that's when it started to really wake me up, and I think wake my soul up. And the other aspect kind of sounds funny, but I started ski instructing in my undergraduate years in school, and I got certified ski instructing. And when I went to the certification exam, everybody had smiles on their face, and they were all passionate about skiing, and they were having fun and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, wow! I was like, that attracted me, and so I told my dad I was going to, be a ski bum, and checked into different areas. And he was like, yeah, great. Why don't you just have something to fall back on? And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, and I was like, what? He's like, well, why chiropractic school? I was like, okay, whatever that is. I mean, I didn't even really know what chiropractic was. And so I drove out from upstate New York out to Colorado, Aspen, Colorado is where I ended up. And on the way out, I stopped out at Palmer College of Chiropractic, and they said, great, we'd like you to start next week. We have a quarter starting. And I was like, oh boy, I was like, I really appreciate that. I said, can we defer that? Because I've got to go skiing. And they were like, yeah, sure. Okay. Go skiing. And so it was fun because I still remember the first morning I woke up and walked outside and looked up the mountains in Aspen, and this voice was just so loud coming out of the mountains. It just hit me, and it just said, this is it. This is where you're supposed to be. This is home. You can kick your feet up. You don't have to worry about going anywhere. So, people ask me, how long I've been in Aspen. I said, well, my heart was born here. It just took a while for the rest of my body to catch up. So I took a couple of years off and was in Aspen, had a wonderful time. Aspen was a lot of fun, had great times. And I was ski instructing and playing the piano. And I say that because my dad planted those seeds, didn't say, hey, you got to do this, but he was like, you learn how to play the piano, you learn how to ski, go out, be a piano player and ski instructor. I was like, yeah, right, Dad, can I go play football now? And there's a lot of fun stories that go with it, but it was that seed. And so when I got there and I had this deferment to chiropractic school, and I was like, okay, I got to do something here, right? So I went to chiropractic school, and it was like the first day or the first week, I'm sitting in class, and I remember looking out the window. I can still picture the classroom here. And again, the voice was so strong. It was like, you're supposed to be a chiropractor, and you're supposed to be a chiropractor in Aspen. And so that's how I got started. And actually, even with my practice, it's a whole nother story. But I had $25 in my pocket, and I had gone to the bank the day before, the blue blazer and the white shirt and the red silk tie and every, the whole proposal to open up this practice. And I went to the bank officer, and he was like, you're just a ski bum. He says, I can't give you all this money, And I was like, all right. And then so the next day I was sitting out in the mall in jeans and a t-shirt and sneakers. A friend of mine came along who I'd been painting houses with. He says, how's things going? And I said, well, good. I said, trying to start my practice. He goes, well, how's it going? I said, well, I need $500 by tomorrow. I've got 25 right now. And I'm thinking to myself, this would be a good time to be resourceful. And he says, well, do you think $1,000 would help you? So I did some quick math, quick on that point, right? And I said, yeah, I think so. He says, okay, fine. So we walked over to the same bank I had been in the day before, walked up to the teller's window, took out $1,000 bills, turned and gave it to me and said, pay me back when you can. And I walked right back into the bank officer's office, and he said, what are you doing here? I said, I banged on the desk. I said, I banged on the desk, and I said, I'm going to be here for a long time. I know I'm going to be here for a long time. I said, I want $10,000 and I want it now. And I crossed my arms. I sat back, and we had a stare down. And we stared at each other, and finally he said, you're serious, aren't you? I said, yes, I'm serious. I said, bang my on the desk again. I said, no, give me the money. And we stared at each other, and he says, you're not leaving. I said, no, I'm not leaving. I said, give me the money. Back in those days, you could do work on a handshake and so forth. So he said, wait. He says, you wait a minute. I'll be back in a little bit. I don't know if it was 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days, but I sat there, and he came back and he said, okay, you'll have $10,000 in your account tomorrow. And that's how I started my practice. So I tell that story because I just had this conviction. I knew that I was on the right track. I didn't care what, but I was going to make this practice happen. So that's why I go through that story, is because, it was a destiny. And people say, how do you get to Aspen? I said, well, destiny. And because that was just my calling. And it's been a fun adventure, maybe just part of my nature of always wanting to learn, right? Always being curious, always being fascinated, right? By people, by the topic. And I guess medicine never really clicked with me. It never really resonated with me. And so I was always looking at nutrition. I was, I've been active and an athlete and so forth my whole life. And so I just tended towards that type of lifestyle. And I also always questioned. And, even through, the last few years in COVID, I questioned.
Yeah.
I think I was proud of the way that I questioned and challenged and got to the point of knowing how the immune system and how the body works and how amazing it is, and understanding the pharmaceutical industry, that they're not about our health, that they're out profits and that they're attacking us. And so for me, it just always seemed to try to take the next right step. What was the next right thing to be doing? And so that's, kind of how I got, well, that is how I got on this journey. And
Love
it's
it.
been fascinating as to where it's going on now. So,
Very
yeah,
cool.
Well,
yeah,
I really like that because it kind of leads into, our topic, and we can actually kind of leave it right there. If you really take what Dr. Lankering's saying, is basically whatever you're passionate about, whatever you feel you're called to, then you will, as Einstein says, the world will conspire to give it to you, but you have to put yourself out there. And I think that, in this day and age, because of, like you mentioned, with big pharma and big food trying to keep us in their cycle of dis-ease, that we need to get passionate. We need to have that deep desire to even get angry and mad if you would, just, like we talked about, drawing the line and we're going to war. That whatever it takes for you to get passionate about, I need to take control of my own health, learn for myself what I need to do, realize that the processed foods, the processed vitamins that are out there are actually destroying my health. And I think once you make that decision, like you did with just your practice, then the world will conspire to bring you the people, the tools, the products to accomplish it.
Yeah, and then I think always being curious and asking questions. I love that concept.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
yeah. So, yeah, it's fun. And, some people say that, kind of that is hard, right? Or gee, it's challenging and so forth. But I like transformational vocabulary. And so I think the words that we use have a big impact on what's going on. And so some people, like maybe over the last few years might have said, well, gee, it's kind of hard to stand up for the truth, or it's hard to draw that line in the sand. And sure, you could say that, or you could say, it's easy to do the right thing. It's easy to do what you think you should be doing. It's harder to go against what your conscience says, what you know is the truth, and to go against that, I think, is a harder thing to do, and to really surrender yourself to it, right? Really just go, yes, this is the place to go, and this is the path. And so while it was hard to do, maybe it was challenging. Let's challenging is a good one. I like
Mhm.
challenges. And we grow, we learn, right? Different things. And it's interesting now. I mean, just yesterday I saw a friend, and like today I'm going to the Aspen City Council for the fluoride issue. I've been fighting fluoride for 30 years, and we've had this court decision. But yesterday I saw a friend, and actually he was on the high school football team my first year in practice, and I was the trainer. And we've become dear friends, and it's wonderful. We hadn't, but he was like, thanks for all that you've been doing for standing up. I got, poof, I just got a wow with that. But and people are coming out and saying what you've been saying the last few years turns out to be true. All these different things, and it's, I don't know, validating, or just kind of reassuring to go, yes, I have been on the right path.
Yeah.
And I can validate that with the people that I've been meeting, right? And with the groups and the tribe that's coming around. And so the tribe is building, people, we know what the truth is when we really hear it. We've got all of our other garbage that maybe sabotages us from really connecting and taking action on the truth. But deep down, I think it's human nature to really stay true to ourselves, and
Yeah,
and that includes the food and the nutrition and the chiropractic and the energy, and all of these things come together. So the tide's changing right now at this point.
absolutely. And I think I'm going to change our direction a bit just because of the vibe. And I'm going to go to what you'd mentioned on fluoride for a second. And the talk about that the tide is changing, and here's where I'm going with it, is that both you and I, we've been teaching about fluoride for decades. That when you mentioned that just now, I remember back at a huge turning point in my career and just life in general when I was invited, and we are trying to figure the date, late 90s, early 2000s, I think, by the Gilbert town council, so a city in Arizona, to come in, and one of the members there was on the same vibe as us, on this mission. They saw what fluoride was, and it wasn't true fluoride, that it's a chemical they're putting in water, and it's all part of the big pharma, big food, fraud. And they asked me to come speak on it before they decided to put the fluoride in the water. Well, when I went to speak on that as the nutritionist, for the teams and different things, it was amazing to me that Big Pharma had actually sent one of their lawyers there to heckle me and to push back and do all this stuff and try to change the narrative. And they're like, there just isn't enough research on this. I'm like, this is really simple. I don't have to have the research at the high level. I have the chemistry. The chemistry bears out the truth. You're going to see more research coming down the road as you keep exposing people to this. And we can stop it right now because it doesn't make sense. The chemistry shows it's harmful, this semi-fluoride chemical that you're putting in the water. Fast forward to today, and now this great ruling that we just got, validating what we've been teaching for years. And I mean, you should see in some of the articles. I had an article in USA Today about me saying this kook, about fluoride way back in like 1999. And it's amazing how tides have changed. Tell us what we're talking about with what's happened with this ruling or the government last few days.
Yeah, so there was a federal court ruling. Michael Conant was the lawyer who had been with the Fluoride Action Network, and there are a few other fluoride groups. And I think this has been in the courts for 6 or 7 years. And they've been fighting the fight, but they brought up, and I think it was an 80-page decision, but they showed that there's a common thread through the fluoride, through the vaccines, through the 5G, through bad food and everything else. This garbage science that they use, they call it the tobacco science, where they know what the research says, but they lie about it. They go right out and blatantly tell a lie about the science that came out, about the results that they've had. And so it showed up in this court hearing that the science that the American Dental Association had been using really wasn't very good. And the new research was showing how it lowers the IQ in children. It does cause thyroid issues and, additional cancers and fractures and, all kinds of things, which we've been talking about for a long time, that it's a neurotoxin. And now this court decision definitely takes it out of the realm of a dental issue and puts it in the realm of a neurotoxin. And it's like, do you want to die with a smile on your face, or you want, and so it's amazing to see that. So, and the tide is changing because now we have this documentation that's, these communities can make that decision right away. And a lot of communities are deciding to take it out and saying, hey, when we get better information, if we want to put it back in, we can. And so people watching this is a real easy, I'm going to call it a hero action, that people can do who are watching this, is go to the Fluoride Action Network and get this bulletin and take it to your city council, because the dominoes are falling and the tide is changing, and one person in your community can make a difference. I know, because I'm going up, I have another 3 minutes today that I'm going to go up. And 2 weeks ago, I was at the, open comment in 3 minutes, and they know I'm coming back, and I've been calling the people, but it's, what people can do. And this is something that you can have a huge impact on the health of your community right now, as well as future generations, to get this toxin out of the water. I don't know if I went off on a whole tangent, but you got to watch out from that.
Yeah, no, I think it's not even a tangent. It goes towards what we're talking about, the Great American Food
Yeah,
Fraud.
I think the thing is that this is so widespread and it's in every facet of our life. And I think just people waking up to that is huge. We're not just talking about a pharmaceutical problem, medical problem. We're talking about, our water. This is, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It is. And I love that you're showing some actionable steps that people need to take. And I think that's the biggest thing we get,
Yeah.
right?
Because I think we feel, just us average, everyday people, we feel inadequate. We don't know what changes that we can make on a widespread level, And I think personally, it's easier to make those small changes within the home, the foods that you eat, the detergents you use, that kind of thing. But to know that you can make an impact on your community by just these steps, that's huge.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the action steps that I think that we're really talking about now, and I love how this is organically moved to this,
Mhm.
is that look, there is a fraud that's being committed on the American people, and it's been going on for decades. We've been teaching about it for over 30 years, you in your way, us in our way, but still together. And finally, as you'd mentioned, the tides are changing. And so now actions, your little actions that you do, what's maybe once was looked at like us as, oh, you guys are just a bunch of kooks, and this is crazy, bunch of hippies type thing, to now it's like, oh my gosh, you're telling the truth. We have had this act of fraud against us and our health, and you can take small actionable steps. The step one, download, that court decision, take it to your local community to get fluoride out of the water. In your home, make better choices with the food. Stay away from the highly processed foods. Only take in whole food vitamins, not processed vitamins, things like that. They're small actionable steps. And what I'd like to do is ask everyone to write down from this episode 3 small actionable steps they could take today. And one of them, Dr. Lankering, might be just to quit using fluoride themselves in their toothpaste and stuff, right?
Huge. I mean, if people read on their tube of toothpaste, it says if swallowed, call your poison center, right? I mean, even if you're just to take that and look at your tube of toothpaste, I mean, wouldn't that make you wonder? You go, well,
Yeah.
gee, so, but those little things, go a long way. And it's pretty amazing. And you know what? This thing about going to the city council, some people make it a whole big deal. Like I said, back to the transformation vocabulary, it's really not that hard to do. You look up where your city council and they have the town meeting and they have public comment and they have to let you speak. They'll give you 3 minutes, but it's a great exercise. It's a great exercise to really speak your truth. And
Love that.
because people are waking up and they hear one person speak. I mean, I'm amazed just 2 weeks ago, when I spoke, how many people watched it on video. I mean, who's watching city council meetings? But I don't know. It's like, but how people are making that comment, but and then you start to gain confidence, you start to gain experience. And okay, it might not be perfect, but I did it. What do we say? It's better to do than to be perfect. But
Yeah.
it's really pretty amazing to work with. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
great. Well, I think what we'll do is I'm going to check to see on your talk that you gave. I thought you were referring to the super seminar. You were talking about the council, but I still get comments today from people that were inspired by you when you were speaking to hundreds of doctors and the public at the super seminar in Vegas. And so I'm going to go and see if we can maybe link that talk to this episode for people to see. And that goes down a whole nother area. You're talking about it's broader than just the food itself and supplements, it's water, but it's also like our EMF, like the electromagnetic fields and the radiation. And we need to bring you on for a whole nother discussion on that because I know you're deeply passionate about it. But for now, I'm going to refer people to your great talk you gave in front of hundreds of health professionals from all over the world and about EMF, and that's another factor. And there's some actionable steps you can take there too. So that link will be in the episode comments. And let's finish up. What's your thoughts on hearing from Dr. Lankering today? And
Well, I think I'd kind of like to transition just a little bit into, the concept of Dr. Lankering's um, relationship with RFK and maybe the potential of the Great American Food Fraud and
the
where we're
documentary.
going with that. Yeah.
Um, Why don't you fill us in a little bit that, I mean, it is a great example, I think, again, of what you were saying, that when you're passionate about something, as you said, you'll attract your tribe, and you've attracted pretty interesting people. Tell us about the RFK attraction.
Yeah, interesting experience. And I think maybe to preface it by saying is that it's amazing now that our platform is actually being addressed and spoken about on the presidential election, right? This
Yes.
Make America Healthy Again. I mean, whoever would have thought
Yeah.
that health, making America healthy, not from the garbage of the, fraudulent food industry, but from real life lifestyle, eating good foods, not having the toxins. I mean, right? We can even think, just a few years ago, I've been talking about vaccines for a long time, but I was definitely a nut or whatever,
Right.
Now it's front page. And now we're finding more and more going on, and people are starting to realize the fraud that's been happening on us, that has been purposely and consciously orchestrated against us and against our health. And that's the real awakening. So we have the food, we have fluoride, we have 5G, we have geoengineering. And I'm not, we can, at least part of my thought is I say, I'm just skeptical. I'm just asking questions. If I'm going to say, if I come out and say, well, this is the way it is, well, I've been proven wrong. Although I appreciate the times I've been proven right, but I say that as a lead in to back in 2019, 5G was starting to come around. And so I'd had a TV show in Aspen since 1995. My hair was a different color when I started doing that. But anyway, and it was called Healthy Lifestyles. And so I would have, it was like a talk show type of thing. And so a couple ladies in Aspen called and asked if I would be willing to help with their efforts against 5G. So I'm like, I must be the top of the list in Aspen if people want to like fight against something, like they call me or something like that. So we got there, and Bobby Kennedy Jr. had just been on a 5G summit, and they knew that I had the show, and the Kennedys have been coming to Aspen for like 70 years or so. And they said, well, you should get Bobby on your TV show. And I was like, well, yeah, sure. That's easier said than done, right? And I was, okay, whatever. And so I remember it was the Saturday before Christmas, and I'm riding up this chairlift called the Bell Mountain Chair. Beautiful blue sky, bluebird day, and I'm by myself. Some of these chairlift rides, it's a slow ride, and you have a chance to talk to God and talk to the universe, talk to yourself or whatever. And I was going up and said, okay, I'm ready. I said, come on, universe. I said, come on, Bobby, come on in. I'm ready for you. Come on in. Let's go. Let's get this going. Yeah, whatever. And I go up to the top of the restaurant, the restaurant at the top of the mountain. I'm in the food line to get my lunch, and I turn, and there's Bobby standing next to me. I said, Bobby. I said, I'm Tom Lankering. I said, I'm fighting the 5G effort here, leading the charge. He says, how? He says, let me give you my phone number and email. I was like, no, I don't really want that. Just kidding. I took it, right? But in the first minute, the first 30 seconds, he gives me his contact info. And so we're chatting and stuff like that. And we part our ways. We're having lunch. So I'm sitting there and I'm having my lunch and I'm thinking to myself, I said, so what would Doug do in this situation? Right. So I go find Bobby and I said, Bobby, I said, we're on a mission, right? He says, yeah. I said, we got a job to do, right? He says, yeah. I said, we got to tell people what's going on. He says, right. I said, we got to do a TV show. He says, okay, fine. And it led into then the first show. And it was kind of funny because we were heading over to the studio and he says, hey, do you mind if we talk about something other than 5G? Because I'm just kind of learning about it. I said, he said, can we talk about something? I said, Bobby, I was joking. I said, but Bobby, I said, I got you in the car. I said, I don't care what you talk about, but we're doing a TV show. I don't care what. I said, but you promised to come back. We'll do another one, right? So we got in there and we did a fascinating half-hour show on vaccines. And if you know Bobby, he's like a encyclopedia. I mean, he knows his history and he knows his stuff. And fortunately, I was smart enough to only ask a few questions and let him do the most of the talking. And then COVID came around. I think he had something. And then I called him back and I was like, hey, they're still showing our TV show from a few years ago. Would you want to do another show? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so and that time I had an hour with him. And so we did a full COVID thing covering from the research to Pfizer to the CIA to freedom of choice to side effects. It was so whether you were for the COVID or against it or didn't know, I thought it was a fascinating show, not because I was on it, but because of what Bobby was showing. And then last year, I called him, and it's kind of like our annual. Now I call him, or in November, I go, hey Bobby, we're going to do it. Yeah, and so we worked to schedule the time. But the last one we did this past December was titled Healing America. And what was fun about that was I started coming home and I'd, turn the computer on and I'd go on to Facebook and my picture would be there. And I was like, how did that get there? Well, their campaign used clips out of that show and, they were
Very
airing
cool.
it all over the place. So, and it's really been an amazing experience because he's very passionate about, he's really passionate about the chronic health epidemic, especially as far as children are concerned now. And back in the 60s, only 6% of children had a chronic illness, whereas now it's over 60% of children
Right.
have chronic illnesses and people, right? I mean, what is it? I think the United States ranks last in industrial countries, but 72nd in the world as far as health. And a lot of it goes back to the sick foods and all these different uh, attacks on us. How's
Yeah.
that? Attacks on us of
Yeah,
what's going
absolutely.
on. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and
but
I think that, the concept of you putting out in the universe that you're ready for him and him being at the top of that hill was amazing. And we've had that same experience just recently. I remember us talking about RFK, and me and Hilary are training at Gold's Gym in Venice. And on the way out, I think Hilary told me, she's like, that's RFK. And I'm turned, I'm like, sure enough. So we got a picture together and that, and it was right after me and you just got through talking, right? And it was just amazing
well,
that
yeah.
that keeps happening.
Well, and the fun thing after that is that after you and I talking was right after Bobby and I spoke because that was July 5th because on July 4th because I was the lead person for his camp. I don't know if you know this story, Hilary, but this is funny. But so, I took the group picture. We were out, in the parade and the whole banners and went through the parade and I had sent the picture to him. And I got done with the parade and I looked at my phone and I had gotten a call from him. And I was like, he's calling me. I was like, shouldn't he be out kissing babies or at some barbecue or in some parade or something like that? And so we texted back and forth, and because Aspen, he was interested in what kind of response he was getting in Aspen, and so the next morning I woke up and I was like, oh, what do I have to lose? And I texted Bobby. I said, hey, Bobby, we didn't get to talk, but you called and just wanted to see if you needed to check in with me. I'm available for you. And he texted back and was like, no, everything's fine. Thanks for what you're doing and so forth. Right. And then less than 5 minutes later, I get the selfie back from you or the text and so forth. And it was like, here's Bobby and Doug. It's like my heroes, it was like I was in this orbit of these people. I was like, wow. I was like, and I think I don't know, finish up with the story, but the energy and the frequency of people who are passionate and people who have the right reasons. And, we're fighting a war. I've been saying we are fighting a war and we are winning the war and we are going to win the war. And and when you're with these people, you folks, right? And Bobby and the rest of the OHS family, right? I mean, what an amazing group of energy and frequency. And right, even the food that you do with OHS, with maybe you can clarify sophageo frequencies. You can,
Yeah. Esophageal.
right? But sophageo frequencies, I mean, the vitamins are at a frequency that I'd be surprised if any other company is doing that. So with all of this energy and everything going on, wow, it's exciting. It's fascinating. It's a lot of fun. So yeah,
It
yeah.
is. And he's probably been, in this fight for almost as long as you, right? I mean, this has been his passion for a really long time. And I love that it's being brought to the masses in the way that it is.
Absolutely. And so I think that just for everyone to know that this story isn't over with RFK, but we're already working on um, asking him to join us in a bigger push with this, this fight against the fraud being taken place on America, the great food fraud. And we're looking forward to documentaries and work together and be able to even make this even a greater movement, because the movement is happening right now in a big way. Like you mentioned, winning the fluoride battle. Oh my gosh, that's decades in the making. We're winning the battle on the food front, going and boycotting Kellogg's with, food bank, calamines and all that.
We're at that point where things are just compounding.
Absolutely. So if you've ever had a question of, should I really make an effort to improve the quality of the detergents I use, the water to stand up for my community, the type of vitamins you take, whole food, should I make an effort against eating processed foods? Should I learn about whole foods, about 5G? Now's the time to what you've probably felt in your heart, but you just wasn't sure because it maybe seemed fringe, to realize, no, this isn't fringe. This is truth. This is a science we've been teaching. Now we have the research to back it up. And to join in, pick those 3 things that you're willing right now to make the changes with. Reach out to experts if you don't know how to do it. That's probably one of the best things that we've learned, is associate with those that are already doing what you want, and help join us in this fight against the great American food fraud. And I love that Dr. Lankering been doing it for decades. We've been RFK, and we didn't know each other at one point, but we were all fighting it. Now we're coming together just to strengthen our forces and have that synergistic effect. And so thank you so much for your decades of commitment of something that isn't easy, but it's right. And we appreciate and love just being friends with you, and also being together in this fight.
It's really special, and I appreciate your leadership, your inspiration, and everything you're doing to make this world a better place. So thank you very much for both of you.
Thanks so much. Well, as always, this is Miss Natural Olympia Hilary.
This is Doug the Formulator.
And the great Dr. Tom Lankering. Until next time, everyone, keep chilling.
Bye.